On today's episode, I will break down passive income, passive investing, and some smart, easy ways you can start earning more income passively without adding a bunch of stress and burnout risk to your life as a nurse.
Welcome to the Enriched Nurse with your host, Dan Richmond. Enrich your personal finances, nursing career, and life.
Can nurses create passive income streams? And do you need 7 income streams in order to get rich? I think the line between side hustles, passive income, and this idea you need 7 income streams gets blurred, and I think it can cause some problems for nurses. And recently, a friend texted me and was asking me about my course creation business. And they were thinking, hey, I'd really like to make some accredited courses, not for nursing, but specific to their profession. And they specifically said, it'd be really nice to have some passive income. And I was like, well, I would only get into it if you're passionate about it, and I wouldn't anticipate making any passive income anytime soon. Because the idea that you're just going to create a course or create anything really, and then just list it on the internet, you're going to magically start getting income from it is pretty unlikely. Before we dive in, if you would take the time to review the podcast, I would greatly appreciate it. It will help the podcast get discovered so more nurses can start improving their financial health and thinking about a better work-life balance. And also check out enrichednurse.com. Check the show notes. I've got a bunch of links to a bunch of free resources, including our free no-risk introductory membership, which will give you access to 3 awesome financial-focused nursing CE courses. They're totally free, and you'll get 5 contact hours with them. So check it out. All right, let's jump in. I think this idea that you need passive income is really overhyped, especially this idea that you need several sources of income. We're going to try to create several sources of passive income. At least the way I think people go about it is pretty overhyped. I think it's kind of like this fantasy thing that people think they need. And what I think they wind up doing is actively wasting a bunch of time, money, and energy, trying to chase higher income or easy money or easy wealth, when there's so many other things that they could actually do, especially as a nurse, to passively make their current income, their nursing income, more valuable. Also, just to live really well, have more time. I mean, nurses are already busy. You really have to ask yourself, how much upfront effort and energy and time and risk do you want to put into potentially creating a passive income stream that may not even actually deliver on what you want? So that's what got me thinking about this, is because the person was asking me about courses, how to get started, which people pay thousands of dollars in consulting fees to learn how to do this kind of stuff. And I'm a few years into this particular business venture, and it has not led to passive income by any means. I mean, certainly the potential, I suppose, is there someday. But that's one thing I think people often confuse, is they think of an online-based business as just going to magically lead to passive income. And while it could happen eventually, and there's a lot of appeal and flexibility that comes with an online business and has a lot of potential, which can have a lot of appeal, especially if you're a nurse and you're getting burned out and you're like, oh my God, I hate my job, or I don't want to go back to work, or I'm trying to figure out how I can pivot or do something else, or be more in control of my life and time. And I think you can get those things, relatively easily while working as a nurse and staying working as a nurse. I think starting a full-on business, unless you're really, and this is what I told the person, I was like, yeah, I think it's worth it if you're passionate about it. Because the thing is if you're passionate about whatever it is you're going to try to derive passive income from, basically you're getting fulfillment, you're getting enjoyment, you're feeling productive. If your reason for doing it makes sense, then it's not really a waste of time. Because the reality is a lot of businesses don't make it. They dissolve after by 5-10 years. And I think after several years, more than half of businesses basically fail. And if you talk to a lot of business owners, what you'll find out is they're putting an insane amount of time and energy into making their businesses successful. And even when a business seems very promising, there's no guarantee that it's going to be successful. It's not like you put 40 hours into your business and 2 weeks later you get like a few $1,000s in pay. It's a little bit harder than that. I mean, that's what happens when you go work a job, right? You put in your hours, you get paid a couple weeks later. With a business, with grand potential and, potential flexibility and higher income and higher wealth accumulation potential comes a much higher upfront cost and also risk that as the business owner, while, you can harness and take advantage and benefit from those things, you also have to bear the responsibility and the risks on whether or not those are successful. And if you're not successful, you're not getting income, you're not running a profit. I mean, you can essentially create a full-time job for yourself that costs you money and doesn't earn you anything. So I think that's one thing I don't like about this idea that you need 7 income streams, because just like setting up one passive income stream, can potentially take some upfront work and cost. And I'll get into that. I think, sound financial lifestyle can actually give you multiple passive income streams. People don't really think about it like that. I see people, when they're looking at the 7 income streams, essentially trying to create like several side hustles or little mini businesses that are just get going, boom, put the thing on autopilot, and it starts sending them revenue. And they're just like, all right, great, that one's done. I'm going to get to the next one. And then basically by the time they get to 7, they're going to get rich. And the way this whole thing came about, this idea that you need 7 income streams, because that's what the wealthy do, has to do with somebody who analyzed tax returns and found that wealthy people have 7 income streams, which I think if you actually dug a little bit deeper than just taking some, internet article talking about, rich people and their IRS tax records and like, oh, they have an average of 7 income streams. I'm thinking what's probably going on is, so the vast majority of people who are really, really rich and wealthy, they have their own businesses. And within those businesses, you're going to need more diverse income streams and more potential sources of revenue, because obviously that creates a huge risk for your business, right? If you're dependent on just one thing and all of a sudden that thing disappears or gets disrupted or it becomes obsolete, like your business just lost all of its revenue, right? So it makes sense as a business to have multiple diverse income streams and other potential sources of revenue, and also, kind of leveraging things in different ways. Like that makes sense. But individually, I'm not sure if it makes quite as much sense, especially the way it's being pitched to nurses. Because hear me out here. Nurses are already really busy. They're already working long shifts. They're already prone to burnout. They already need recovery and time to recharge on their days off, or they'll be less healthy, more miserable, less fulfilled as a nurse. They'll spend more money frivolously, and at a convenience, they'll have to work more. And, they don't really need more stress and pressure. Like if anything, they need more time, which I think is generally kind of why they love this idea of passive income in the first place, right? It's because, oh, I'm exhausted. I don't have time. I don't have as much money as I'd like. Wouldn't it be nice, just like this friend who texted me, it's like, wouldn't it be nice to just have some passive income so I didn't have to work quite as much? And I know that person actually has their own successful business as well. I get it. Running a business is hard. Working as a nurse is hard. And this idea of passive income just sounds fantastic. But I think individually it's kind of BS, because like this idea, let's say, you're going to create like something and sell it on like Etsy, right? Like an arts and crafts thing, or like you're going to knit all these hats and then you're going to sell them on Etsy. And, it's just that simple. You get this inventory of a bunch of hats, you list it, and then boom, people are just going to start buying it. Well, there's already a ton of people selling hats, knitted hats on Etsy probably. One, what's going to differentiate you from them? How are people going to find your hats versus like the other thousands of sellers selling hats? Or the other thing I see is like a print shop business where basically you're, coming up with some catchy slogan or something and printing. And you see this all the time, like in nursing forums on social media or in memes, they almost always have a link to like a print store and they're like, oh, get the design here. And it's just like this quote over top of like a canned stock photo shirt. So it's not even the actual shirt that you're going to be buying, right? Or whatever it is it's printed on. There's like a ton of people doing that though. So the idea that you're just going to be able to set up this automated scheme, put it on the internet, and then it's just going to start generating tons of revenue for you. without any upfront effort or marketing or going above and beyond, I just don't really see how it's realistic. I mean, it's one thing if you're lucky and you're like the very first person doing a niche thing. And actually, I'm one of the first people creating financial health courses for nurses. It's been a ton of work. And I'll be honest, like I underestimated. I thought like, oh man, I would love to get paid by my employer and have the cost of, financial health nursing courses reimbursed so I could learn how to advance my knowledge and skills, make myself wealthier, make smarter financial moves, work less, retire earlier, all these things, invest smarter. And I'll tell you, everybody's suspicious of anybody hawking financial like products, tips, advice, or whatever, because there's so many charlatans out there scamming people out of their money. So they're already kind of skeptical, right? But the thing is even if you're the first one or early on a niche or a movement, there's still going to be a ton of effort. And that's one thing that I've been pretty surprised by is how much more complicated marketing on the internet is these days. And again, this is why I kind of think this idea of, one, I don't think you actually need passive income. I think nurses can build plenty of wealth from their active income. I think they can passively invest, which I'll talk a little bit more about, to actually eventually replace their income, which I think is a much smarter, more realistic path. And I don't think it'll contribute to burnout and making yourself even busier than you already are and trying to pursue a bunch of stuff that's probably not likely to make you a lot of money unless you're pretty relentless and like really, really motivated. So anyways, I think this idea you need 7 income streams, I think it's just kind of BS. I think it's overhyped. Like so many things are. You got these so-called experts and gurus saying like, oh, the secrets of the rich are you need 7 income streams. And it's gotten really popular, this idea on social media and in forums and whatnot, that you need these. And so people are working towards them. And of course, if you can create 7 passive income streams that are, building wealth for you, of course, that's better than having one or working as a job and you'll replace your job. But you can do the exact same thing as a passive investor from your nursing income. You can leverage your nursing income, which I'll talk more about, and without nearly the hassle or this idea of trying to start all these crazy businesses or side hustles or, little ventures that a lot of other people are doing. I mean, not just the Etsy business, right? Like how many resellers are there on Amazon? It's like, sure, yeah, you can make money from selling stuff on eBay, selling stuff on Amazon, or reselling stuff. Or like the other thing, a few years back, it seemed like drop shipping businesses were getting really big. And like you could automate this drop shipping business. And then a ton of people started doing it. And if you don't know what drop shipping is, I believe what it is you set up this automatic scheme where, and then create like a bunch of listings on Amazon. Like maybe you've gotten a gift before from like Walmart, even though the person bought it on Amazon. And so the person buys this thing on Amazon. And then what happens is it doesn't actually get sent from Amazon, website or company. It gets sent from some other one. Like it finds like a lower price on whatever it is you bought. And then it gets shipped directly from that other place with the lower cost. So like one time for my kid, my grandma bought my kids something and they bought it off Amazon. They paid like $20 more than it would have cost them if they'd gone to Walmart. Like this automatic scheme shipped something directly from Walmart. It was something we didn't actually want. And then when we went to return it, it couldn't be returned to Amazon. And then Walmart was like, you don't have a receipt. Like, we have no idea what you're talking about. It just wound up being this big hassle. And yeah, whoever came up with that scheme, they got to keep the difference, right? Like the $20, basically ripping off grandma and giving us some serious hassle on a product we didn't want. So, I mean, that's the other thing. Some of these things, it's like, so if you can make money off of it, I mean, who cares if you're still just doing something that's lame and not really contributing to the society or useful anyways? I think the idea of 7 passive income streams is BS because it pretends like there's not going to be a ton of upfront costs to actually make these things successful. And don't get me wrong, there's no shortage of potential. There's no shortage of potential ideas and ways to make money. But the idea that you can effortlessly create them without lifting a finger, it's BS. It's pretty unlikely. And I think what's probably happening is the original idea for this, right? Like, oh, the tax records show rich people have 7 income streams, is, I think, it's like some common sense is being ignored here. I think, yeah, they probably have a freaking business, which results in a lot of different income streams, and then they're investing and, making sound financial moves, which is going to give you a bunch of passive income streams. So let me explain what I mean here. So just having a sound financial lifestyle is going to give you several passive income streams, maybe not 7, but so as a nurse, I invest in high interest savings accounts, gets me monthly interest. My savings accounts are paying like 4% right now. The problem with that is it doesn't always stay that way, but hey, like that's money that, gets deposited in my account. All I had to do was put money in the account, and every month I'm getting passive income and interest payments for it. Index mutual funds have dividends. Share price can grow. So my index mutual funds, every year, my shares are increasing through dividends, and the value of those shares are going up as well, most years with capital gains. So I'm not having to do anything. I have automatic investments going into them, and those go up. The majority of my wealth is in index mutual funds and has exponentially increased in value since I started 20 years ago. Similar thing, bond index funds. So bonds are a little bit different. The mutual funds are similar, except instead of holding stocks, a bond index fund is going to hold a bunch of bonds within the mutual fund. And, instead of getting dividends, you can have share price fluctuation, but bond funds are unique in that they're going to pay monthly interest. So yeah, you get a bunch of money in a bond index fund, and it's going to pay you a bunch of interest. And because there's a bunch of bonds within there, the risk is much lower that, like somebody's going to default on that bond because there's like thousands or more of these bonds within the mutual fund, and each one's paying interest, in the fund, and then you get monthly kickback on that. And that's totally passive once you put the money in there and just leave it alone. A 401k match. So this would be, a 401k match is pretty awesome and pretty passive and doubles your money. So if you make $100,000 a year and you get a 3% match, you set that up automatically when you first start working. Then every paycheck you're putting 3% in, and your employer's matching it for 3%. You're doubling your money passively. And if you're making $100,000 a year, $3,000 investment gets you another $3,000 match from your employer. And it doesn't get much more passive than that. You don't even have to do anything once it's set up. So that's pretty cool. And I'm always surprised how many nurses don't take advantage of the match, or as they stay with an employer, and their match goes higher because they've been staying with an employer for several years and now they qualify for a higher match. They won't take the time to change that match so it actually captures the full match. So anyways, that's a whole separate thing, which I talk about elsewhere. But again, that's smart. It's passive. It saves you money on your taxes as well. And it just automatically investing each month through your employer 401k. I-bonds, another thing I like to invest in. It's kind of fun. They got really popular a few years back when they hit like 10% interest. But basically the way an I-bond works is it's got 2 interest rates. You can only buy $10,000 per person per year, but basically it gives you inflation protection. So it pays monthly interest, gives you inflation protection. I buy my I-bond. It has a fixed rate, a rate it'll always pay. So I bought like $8,000 worth last month. And, the I-bond I bought with $8,000, its base interest rate is 1.2%. And then the other portion of it adjusts every 6 months based on what inflation is doing. And so, it helps me basically beat inflation, keeps my money worth more than if it were just sitting in a bank account not earning any interest. And theoretically, if the fixed rate is 1.2% plus an inflation adjustment, I should be beating inflation by about 1%. So I-bonds are pretty cool. Once again, once you buy it, it's just passive. It just keeps increasing in value over time. And then the other thing is, too, you're making automatic debt payments. It's going to save you money on interest. It's passive, basically, too. So just having a sound financial lifestyle, how many was that? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. That's like 6. Maybe I'm stretching a little bit on how those are passive income streams, but like literally a sound financial lifestyle, it's going to give you like 3 to 5 passive income streams just off your nursing income, your active income alone. And so what kind of kills me, though, is instead of doing these common sense things or these, it's not very exciting, like saving up money and getting interest on it. I mean, I'll admit it's much more exciting to go take out a loan and buy like a boat, or like, do a bunch of side hustles to increase your income. But like there's all this pressure to get side hustles, and it's like, oh, more income. But man, like the busier we get as nurses, the more money we tend to spend. So if you're not automating investments to savings, to your retirement, to index funds, I-bonds, like these other investment vehicles and accounts, if you're not automating your investments to them, you're probably just and you do a bunch more side hustles trying to get more income, or trying to come up with these passive income streams, you're probably just going to spend more money because you're wasting all this time trying to get this income stream set up so you can like get rich or whatever, replace your income from something. Meanwhile, since you're spending all this time, you're neglecting these other things, and if you do the math, like you could be making less than minimum wage trying to set this thing up, like especially if it's a little more complicated, like actual kind of business venture. You can easily be making less than minimum wage or even zero if you're not careful. And it's crazy, like nurses and healthcare workers, I was reading the statistic, like more than 50% are engaged in side hustles. They're exploring side hustles, and they fully intend to like leave nursing and do their side hustle full time. And some of them I'm sure are very promising, especially if they're nurse related, entrepreneur businesses or side ventures, that are filling like a role in healthcare, solving a problem in healthcare, could be potentially lucrative. Don't get me wrong there. But like some of these other things, like the printing businesses, the coaching businesses, I don't know, all this other stuff. I mean, even course creation business like I'm doing. There's a lot of potential people doing it. And I think people overestimate how easy it's going to be to set up. And they're not necessarily making a ton of money off of it. If they did the math, they might be surprised that, they'd be better off to get a minimum wage job as their second side hustle. And, I have a lot of experience with side hustles. So years ago, back in 2009, I released a music album. And I'll admit, it was really cool. I self-published this album, collaborated with another musician, and Amazon used to have this on-demand thing. We didn't have to buy inventory. Like we were able to set this up where basically when somebody bought the album, Amazon would just print the disc and then send it out. It's since changed. I don't even think they have that business model anymore. And most people are just streaming music these days. Anyways, they're not really buying albums. Now you can like get your music, or all kinds of things distributed digitally on a bunch of different channels. And each time somebody streams, my album on YouTube or on Spotify or iTunes or whatever, we get like a cent, like a couple cents, depending on the platform, and royalties from it. So it's kind of interesting. So even all these years later, I'm still getting like a few $100 a year in royalties off this album, and I haven't done anything with it. But it took a ton of upfront setup. Recording the album, coming up with the music, it was all originals, writing, recording everything, playing, practicing, marketing that initially. It took a lot of time to set up. And, while, it's kind of cool still getting like $200 to $300 in annual royalties from it all these years later, like 16 years later, I still got to send my collaborator royalties. So it's it's not totally passive because I actually got to send that guy a cut of the royalties. I got to do that myself. And there was all this upfront cost. But back then, I was kind of like going crazy with the potential of side hustles, and I totally burned myself out. I was already burned out as a nurse. I was disliking my job as a nurse and thinking, I don't think I want to do this. That's why I wound up working part-time, and I've been part-time most of my career, is because I really didn't like my job when I lived in Hawaii and working as a nurse in the hospital. It was tough. And so eventually I figured out how to really cope with that. But I was kind of exploring all these ways to get out of the hospital and make money, so I didn't actually have to work as a nurse because I was burned out and I wasn't feeling that fulfilled from it, and I didn't like it. Now I actually really like nursing. I'm fulfilled from it. And the idea of side hustles and trying to create all these passive income streams, it was a little absurd to me. But back then, like, I'm living on Kauai, I released this album, and I'm just like, oh my God, you can get paid, like, to make videos on YouTube. Like, I can create like sunset videos, put the music behind them, sell them to, like doctor's offices. So there's like peaceful music in the waiting room. And I just, all of a sudden I had like 20 ideas for ways that things I could create to make, digital products and whatnot with little overhead and potential to make like a bunch of different income streams and have a bunch of different things paying royalties. And just kind of hit me. So I was putting in all this time and effort, had like all these projects going on I was working on. And yeah, the potential was there. Like, yeah, I could have made a ton of money. A lot of people have made a ton of money. But I'm like taking camera recording equipment. My wife and I, we go do a hike on Kauai and go to a waterfall without me lugging around all this crap, and like setting up a tripod and taking a video of the waterfall, or getting like a jungle scene and all this stuff, recording sounds and whatnot. And then this other time I remember I was at the beach and I'm recording a sunset, and these tourists I saw them coming. I knew they were going to walk in front of me, and they walked right in front of, my sunset footage I was recording. And it was so ridiculous. I got mad, and all I needed to say, like, it's way easier to edit audio. And obviously can't edit a tourist out quite as easily of a sunset video. I mean, I could have, but it was just so absurd. It's like, now I can't watch a sunset on the beach without getting mad at like a tourist for, screwing up my, my sunset video. It's just kind of ridiculous. And then they wound up, after they walked by, they were like, oh, I'm sorry. Did we ruin your sunset video? I didn't realize you were recording. So, it messed up the audio anyways, but it was like, why didn't I just say like, hey, do you guys mind walking behind me? I totally could have remixed the wave sounds and got the voice out, but I still kept pursuing it. It wasn't until my wife and I were on this really popular North Shore hike where she got a little annoyed with me that I was recording or setting up. And so she took off down this trail, and it's getting late. It's, it gets dark there at like 7:00 at night typically. And so it's 6:00. I'm recording something, and she was like, I'm just going to go ahead. Then it took me longer to get what I wanted, so I'm packing up this tripod and crap. And then I start heading down the trail, and I can't find her. And this is like a 4-mile hike, and the sun's going down. We didn't have very much water or anything. I was outfitted with a bunch of recording gear, not to spend the night. And so long story short, she had gone down a little goat trail. I passed it. And then I was trying to catch up. I pretty much ran with all my recording gear back to almost the start of this trail. And I'm asking tourists, hey, have you seen this lady? And nobody knows. And then I'm thinking, oh no, like, she's lost. I can't find her. And you start thinking, well, what happened? What's going on? And so I wound up backtracking. Eventually we found each other. And I'm just like, what am I doing? This isn't worth it. Basically, I'm ruining my time at the beach. I'm ruining my hiking time, ruining my quality time spending with my wife. And then I'm spending I got 5-day weekends on Kauai, right? I work 2 days a week out there. I got 5-day weekends. I'm spending all this time on my days off, creating all these how-to videos, video hike reviews for Kauai, all these projects, all these big plans. And then I was just, you know what? This is ridiculous. This isn't improving my life. And who cares? I'm just going to keep freaking investing. It's so easy to invest. It's so much easier to make money investing, and I just cut my losses on all of it and was really, really happy. Been happy ever since. So don't get me wrong. I get it. I get hustling and seeking out potential and stuff, but it basically, made me dislike my job even more and ate up a bunch of my free time with busyness and annoying stuff. And it didn't really add a whole lot of value to my life. So this was a long time ago. This was 2008 to 2010. And anyway, so I just realized a good use of my time trying to pursue all these side hustles just made me really busy. I really leaned into passive investing, stock market index funds, started eventually maxing my investments there, and it's paid off huge. It's made infinitely more money than I probably would have made from any of these ventures with way less hassle. And I've had all these wonderful life experiences and plenty of time and enjoyment ever since then. If you're passionate about something, of course it makes sense to go for it. You got a hobby and you want to make money from it. Sure, why not? But this idea like kind of going overboard with it or trying to escape nursing. I think it potentially can just make it worse. You got to be pretty careful about that. The other thing with these side hustles and the thought people have is, oh, well, but working a job, depending on just your nursing license, being dependent on your employer, isn't that risky? Well, sort of, except that's what insurance is for. Don't get me wrong, like a business is pretty risky. There's no guarantee that your business is going to do well. I mean, your ability to do well as a business owner or with some of these other things is directly related to how much time, energy, effort, and, potentially luck is involved with it. Okay, sure, like that's a major reason why I seek financial independence and invest, because I want to replace my nursing income and not be dependent on work. And I have the best of both worlds. I'm able to do that, work part-time. I mean, heck, a lot of nurses retire and they do what I've been doing, well, for almost the last 20 years, which is work part-time. I've worked part-time 16 or 17 years out of my 20-year career. So it's pretty awesome. My wife works per diem. We have a lot of time to enjoy life. And we make plenty of money working part-time as a nurse, and her per diem work helps supplement that too. It doesn't mean we neglect our ability to invest as well. Even though we're investing, we're also insuring against potential mishaps that could lose us that income, right? Because we're not at a point where we want to lose our nursing income. That would create like other potential risks. So the way you insure against that is by having like a bunch of liquid assets or ample savings, right? So if for some reason I get laid off, I've got thousands of dollars, tens of thousands of dollars that can cover my income. But I mean, I'm probably not even gonna have to touch that because I got access to unemployment. I get long-term disability insurance. So if I have a catastrophic injury or something, I'm insuring against that risk and have a way to replace the income with disability insurance. I'm the primary earner for my family. If I die, I have massive term life insurance policies to make sure my wife and kids can pay off all the debt, like any debt we have, replace like several years of my income to live off of. You can insure against those things. People act like, if you aren't running your own business or have a bunch of income streams, it's just like a huge risk working for a job. And sure, there are risks, but I think it's misleading to think you're just going to create this business and then magically not going to have even more risks than losing your job, basically. I think it's a little more complicated than that, but you can insure against losing your nursing license. You can also insure against mistakes with malpractice insurance. The other thing I think nurses miss when going after some of these things too is like, why aren't you leveraging your active RN license and getting more passive income just in the work you're currently doing? And so what I mean by that is like using benefits, getting differentials, getting that retirement match. So many nurses don't take advantage of their benefits and they miss out on a bunch of potential compensation. Probably the easiest example I can give, and I've got a free course on this about how getting a nurse certification can add a lot of money to your career earnings. And sure, there's a little upfront cost and effort to get a specialty certification, but once you get it, like I get $3 an hour more. Every hour I work, I'm getting paid $3 an hour more. For a full-time nurse, that's almost like $6,000 a year. So that's all passive income once they've gotten the thing. They get an extra $6,000 a year, an extra $3 an hour. Every single hour they work. And nurses have access to a bunch of differentials and other benefits that can do that. And once you start leveraging and combining those things, you can make a lot of extra money. But you got to put in a little effort to figure out what those things are, understand them, and then start utilizing them. But once you have that certification differential, boom, you're just getting $3 more an hour. Like I said, for a full-time nurse, my hospital, it's a lot of money. It's like $6,000 a year. And that compounds over time too. So I've got an ad running on Facebook where I'm like, hey, don't make this $22,000 mistake. And that was one of the mistakes I made was I waited years to get certified as a nurse. So I lost tens of thousands of income for those several years that I wasn't earning that certification differential. You can put a bunch of time into creating like a side hustle or a passive income stream, or you can just get certified and make your every hour you work more valuable. And you can do that in multiple different ways. I already talked about the retirement match. Like the other thing is just looking at your finances. As we get busier, we tend to waste more. We tend to spend more money. There's convenience. We take on debt, pay interest. But when you eliminate waste, like a subscription you haven't used or gym membership, things that you don't actually use that can get pretty expensive over time, canceling those, turning those off, not using them, getting rid of them, identifying them. I mean, some people are like paying for subscriptions they don't even know they have. Take the 15, 20 minutes it takes to cancel that, and then you just got passive income by eliminating that wasteful cost. Same thing with interest. You eliminate debt, you save money on paying interest. So that can be really smart too. There's a lot of ways to get passive income that doesn't involve chasing overhyped hustles or passive income or things that are likely to take up a lot more of your time and contribute to stress and potentially burn you out in your regular job as a nurse without nearly as much effort, frankly. And the other thing is like non-typical nurse jobs. I mean, nurses can use their licenses to get a per diem job in a completely different low-stress area that may make them feel much more fulfilled and happy. More nurses are working as clinical instructors. Clinical instructors are really high demand. I mean, it's going to be totally different from working the bedside, working with nursing students. And you don't even have to be a full-on nursing instructor. Like, you can just do clinical instruction. So that can be an interesting way to potentially supplement your income, especially if you drop from like full-time to part-time and then have a part-time gig and per diem or whatever. Just never pick up an extra shift again and do some of this other stuff. Healthcare writing. So I've gotten several articles published and been paid over $1,000 to publish nursing articles. Honorariums, gotten several $100s worth of honorariums for creating courses. You can also get them for speaking fees at conventions and events. And then like helping with skills days. So for years, I've been a part of nursing committees and helped with skills days and things like that. And it's not really passive income, but it gets you away from the bedside. You're actually still getting paid probably pretty decent. If you're like a hospital nurse, you're still getting paid the same wage. That's better than a full-blown side hustle or doing something completely different. You're using your expertise, using your license. I mean, some people are just like, I just don't want to ever go back to the hospital or go back to my job or anything to do with it on my days off period. I get that, but I mean, heck, you can even call in now. Like, I've called in while I was doing a hike to a committee I've served on in the past, and with the remote options, there's a lot more options. The other thing is union organizing. That's not what I would call easy work. I've been paid as a union organizer as well. I mean, you can get stipends. There's all kinds of ways to make money off your nursing license that contributes and helps out. But I think probably the most important thing I wish nurses understood was becoming a passive income investor and automating your investments from every paychecks is really what I think is the way to go. And that's the conclusion I came to years ago, was I don't want to be a landlord. I don't want to add all this additional stress. I don't want to have all these like little side businesses and ventures and like things I'm trying to do all the time. I just want to invest a big chunk of my paycheck into an investment that's relatively low risk and is like, going to increase my wealth a lot in the future. And so I've been investing in stock mutual funds for 20 years, and about almost 15 years of that has mostly been into passive investments like index funds. And it works. So, I mean, if you really want to build wealth as effortlessly as possible, become a passive investor, automate investments from every paycheck, starting with your 401k into an account like your 401k, into a index mutual fund or a target date fund. And in like 10 to 20 years, you're probably going to be wealthier than a supermajority of other nurses and Americans in general. And you might even have enough to completely replace your income that you rely on from nursing just with the passive investments that you had from investing automatically in index funds. And, that's enough to make you truly financially independent. And like I said, if you're doing that, you're probably going to be doing some other smart financial things too that's going to increase your wealth even more in the form of savings, I-bonds, other investments, other accounts, and you'll live a better life. You'll be able to feel more fulfilled as a nurse. And you do some of those other things I was talking about too, reducing waste and increasing the amount of time potential you have. And man, all of a sudden it becomes way easier to cope as a nurse. It becomes way easier to feel more fulfilled as a nurse. And it's just way easier to live a better life. I mean, when I'm working less, stressing less, and building wealth, I'm pretty happy. And I've been there for quite a while now. I'm 41, and it is giving me a ton of options. And just knowing that you have a bunch of financial options just gives you so much freedom, and it's such a good place to be. That is where I really think nurses are probably best putting their time and energy, unless they got like some unique idea or something they're really passionate about. Then of course, yeah, you should go for it. Anyways, I think the idea you need 7 passive income streams is completely overblown. I think just having a sound financial lifestyle gets you multiple passive income streams that will grow your wealth level. And I think we got to be careful about taking on too many side hustles or going after too many like side business ventures, things like that. It can be a huge time suck. Like even when something seems potential, it can take like 2 or 3 years to get it to where it actually starts generating revenue. And, some, way technology's going, a lot of things are changing. And there's a chance some businesses, they never become profitable. So you have to understand the risk that it's like, hey, like, this might not work out. And unfortunately, our human nature, we tend to be overconfident and we tend to underestimate the amount of time things will take, even the best laid plans, right? So just be careful about that. Don't underestimate. And if anybody tells you you can make mindlessly easy money, some passive income idea, like I would be pretty skeptical unless they're encouraging you to invest in, stock index mutual funds with low fees through a tax advantaged account. I would say I would be very skeptical and definitely do your homework before going down that path. I think when we're working less, when we're being mindful of our money and we're aligning that with our goals and dreams, we can live a much better life and nursing becomes a lot easier and we get a lot more financial freedom and a lot more options. So thanks for listening to the show today. As always, the Enriched Nurse is here to help you with your money management and financial health knowledge. We have accredited nursing courses. Our new membership for an affordable annual fee gets you access to over 20 courses, 30 contact hours, and it's probably eligible for employer reimbursement. And you could probably even get paid to take and learn this stuff. I provide actionable, practical financial education specific for nurses. Most of it's based on my real-world experience of getting results. So you can work less and live more and still build wealth and feel more fulfilled as a nurse. So check out the Level 1 membership. Subscribe for a 15% off coupon. I hope you enjoyed the show today. Thanks for joining me.